I'm broadcasting. And as people come in here, because we have some attendees, I will just begin with my opening remarks and welcome everyone to Schneps Media's Rapid Fire Debates. Welcome. This is PoliticsNY. I'm Sky. I'm your host and moderator for today's debate. We are 1 week away from the special election on March 23rd for City Council District 11, a seat that became vacant when Council member Andrew Cohen was nominated for a Supreme Court judgeship last year. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello.
All right, I'm just giving some opening remarks here. We have 1 hour together with our candidates for Council District 11. Today's debate will be unlike any other. It will be informative and informal and rapid fire. I have Alex Mitchell from my team working with me behind the scenes to ensure all candidates keep responses brief, and he will keep time. Like many of you, audience and participants here, I've watched debates and forums as a consumer of news and as a voter. Most, if not all, of the debates I've seen ask candidates to respond to a very specific topic, and sometimes the issues, because they're not black and white, it's hard to compare responses between candidates and evaluate who's best to be elected. So one of the things I'd like to do that's a little different is keep all of us together here on the same screen so we can all see each other. And you candidates, you know the issues backwards and forwards, but to the layperson, sometimes it's very confusing to get into the weeds. And I'm sure out of everyone on this panel, there are many things that you can all agree upon. So how can a voter best determine who would be the best to vote for next Tuesday? And that's what we're going to try and determine today. So in the other debates, I know they go through the rules. I'm not much of a rule follower myself, so I'm not going to set any rules other than kindly keep your answers short, not necessarily sweet, because I will ask each of you to name something negative about one of your competitors here on the screen. So keep your answers short. And we'd like to hear from each of you holistically to get the best sense of your character, to have the best chance to illustrate your actual self. And I'd like to thank the partners for today's debate, the new Bronx Chamber of Commerce President Lisa Soren and BronxNet TV Executive Director Michael McNaby. Our Schneps Media Rapid Fire debates, again, are informative and informal. And the best way to showcase the candidates is by tapping into the community. So we appreciate those partnerships. So audience, thank you for being here. If you have any questions for the candidates that arise while you're watching this, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll see what kind of time we have and try and answer everyone's questions. And we'll see what kind of time we have again. So we are here with the candidates. And the first order of business, I'd like for each candidate to please introduce yourself in a 1 minute only, 1 minute opening. We'll go alphabetical order, last name first. Beginning with Eric. Just give us 1 minute, who you are and why are you running?
Hi, well, yes, I'm Eric Dinowitz. I'm a former public school teacher, community activist, Democratic District Leader. I chair the Aging Committee on Bronx Community Board 8. I was born and raised in the Northwest Bronx, and straight out of college at the age of 21, I became a public school special education teacher in the community at schools like Kennedy and Malton. And what I saw in the classroom, hungry students who were homeless was heartbreaking. I saw, as UFT chapter leader, I saw a city that didn't support our workers. I see that as chair of the Aging Committee and as Democratic District Leader. We need a city that works for the very people that need the most help. And we need our community here in the Northwest Bronx to have a voice in our recovery.
Okay, thank you. And Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Haller. I'm a mother of 4. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been a climate activist for many years. I'm running for city council right now on a platform of equity, resilience, and sustainability because the multiplicity of crises that we are facing requires someone who understands that good solutions solve multiple problems at once and that everything is connected. I have experience in the private sector with big corporate and small business. I have experience in the not-for-profit sector, and I have experience in the government sector with particularly with constituent management. I'm running right now because we do not have time to waste to dig ourselves out of the messes that we are in and intentionally build forward for the future.
Thank you. Mino.
Thanks, Guy. My name is Mino Lora, and I'm an educator, an artist, an activist, and a nonprofit executive director. I founded an organization that now works with 1,000 young people a year doing free theater and leadership programs. I've been an advocate for 15 years since I immigrated to this country. I've brought students up to Albany to advocate for student funding. I've met with Senator Chuck Schumer to make sure that we received COVID relief. I've partnered with the governor's office to make sure the vaccine rollout didn't include invasions of privacy. When summer youth employment was cut from the budget, I didn't accept that as a solution, as an answer, and immediately brought groups together, 14 nonprofits, and recreated a program. When crisis hits, I turn to action, and that's why I'm running for office. These injustices keep happening, and I know that we have to get into government to make the systemic change. I'm proud to be endorsed by Working Families Party. I am proud to be an executive director that's kept my staff employed during this pandemic and programs running. And proud to be a native Spanish speaker in a district that is majority working class and people of color, and will be the first Latina to represent this district.
Thank you. Dan.
Hey, Sky. So I'm Dan Padernacht, and I'm born and raised in the Bronx. I'm originally from the neighborhood of Kingsbridge, where I still live and where I work. I've been on Bronx Community Board 8 for 12 years. I ran the agency for 3 years as its chair. I've been the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee for 8 years, vice chair of the Land Use Committee for 4 years. I'm running for city council because we're at a critical time in our city right now. And I think we need experienced leaders who know government, who know the law, and that are ready to make difficult decisions for our community. I often say that I hate politics, but I love government. And I'm looking forward to do the job and bring my consistent and persistent work ethic to the community to represent you.
Thank you. And Kevin.
How you doing? My name is Kevin Pasmino. I'm the father of 4. I live here in Riverdale with my wife and my 4 children. I am a assistant director, a DGA assistant director. I'm new to politics. I got involved and jumped into the political arena because I'm just been very unhappy with the current political body that's kind of run New York State, New York City, and the local municipalities. As an assistant director, I've managed many multi-million-dollar productions. It's a very high accountability business where there's a lot of moving parts, and it requires a good deal of logistical skills as well as leadership skills and managing line item budgets. I'm not a politician. I'm not accepting any monetary donations. I'm here to represent the people and only people, and I'm trying to make a difference in terms of getting rid of this same old political system of power brokers.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Thanks for your introductions. The first question, I want to talk about Bronx County in general. Bronx County notoriously ranks 62 out of 62, the last of all the counties in New York State, rated last for health outcomes and overall quality of life. I'd like for each candidate to pick one issue that you specifically will focus on first to change that, and how will you do it? In just 1 minute, let's go in the same order, beginning with Eric.
Thank you. My number one priority, the winner of this election, once it's determined, will take the seat immediately. And my number one priority is bringing vaccines to our community that has, in a lot of ways been historically underserved, specifically older adults and communities of color, immigrant communities who maybe they don't speak English and have the same access to the vaccine. And that is my number one immediate priority. But long-term, just thinking about health outcomes, I taught environmental science at the JFK campus, and I would bring students to the garden. We were so lucky to have a garden there. And, when I would take a piece of fruit off the vine and eat it, some of the students would freak out at first, but then they would take a bite. And then I would start seeing a change in some of the students that instead of bringing Doritos and Pepsi for breakfast, they'd bring, an apple or a banana. And so within our schools and within our education system, we can move towards, gardens and environmental education as a way to address food justice and health justice right here in New York City, in the Bronx.
Okay, Jessica.
Yeah, Not 62 actually has played a powerful role in helping me formulate my campaign and my advocacy. I've asked around, one of the ways to break Not 62 is with socioeconomic uplift. So investing in our neighborhoods, investing in jobs in our communities, and reducing socioeconomic disparities is the first thing. The other thing I would do is immediately start working on air quality. Air quality is the source of so many of the health discrepancies that we are seeing, and we have chosen to continue to house infrastructure, highways, truck routes through the Bronx. And if we pull them out, we will see health benefits immediately. We'll see benefits long-term for the environment, but kids will stop having asthma attacks immediately. Children born in poor air quality years have lower lifetime economic outcomes. So this plays, not, health ties to socioeconomic, and it's an ever growing circle. So we need to cut it in those two places to lift us out of that rank.
Okay, Mino.
Education is the most important investment we make as a society. And for me, one of my top priorities is education. And right here in the Bronx, we have been neglected and we have been underfunded for far too long, both at the city level and at the state level. Bronx schools are owed $160 million at the state level. Just last year, $707 million was removed from schools. So what will I do immediately? Work with our children, make sure that all of our working families have a top school education. And we can do that if we prioritize it. We need to downsize classrooms. We need to build schools, which will build jobs and create jobs for prevailing wages. We need to hire more social workers and guidance counselors. We have a ratio of 350 to 1, and that is unacceptable as we come out of this crisis and get through this pandemic. We also need to shift, and I know that that's going to be difficult, but that's not going to stop us from moving forward, our curriculum. Make sure that we have culturally responsive education. Our children are, the majority of our kids are Black and Latino, are a lot of immigrants, special needs. We need to make sure that we're reflecting that not only in the curriculum, but in the teachers who are there, which is why we will also push for free CUNY and a pipeline with the School of Education at CUNY in the different schools, so that they are the teachers who are reflecting the students that they serve.
See, there's very different answers so far, so it's cool to hear everyone's different priorities. Dan, your turn.
Yeah, look, the answer to this question is it's a holistic approach, but I'll tell you, like, number one thing that I think we really need to do, investing in, get back to after school programs, particularly sports programs and educational programs, sort of like when I was a kid. Get kids involved in athletics early in their life and educate them upon the value of health and being healthy, having a healthy diet and being out there. Other than that, there are things that we could look to do as, in terms of climate change, in terms of pollution in the Bronx. It's, getting a green city fleet. It's greening trucks as much as we can and creating financing opportunities to do so. And then looking at different timing for truck routes and when trucks can actually go through our city streets to limit the pollution that's going on there.
And Kevin, what's your thoughts? Are you there?
So, I mean, as soon as whoever's elected is going to be thrown into budgetary conversations. So, I mean, for me, my main goal is accountability back into government. So, we have, whether it's unions, whether it's just in general, just power brokers, real estate companies who have this, various, financial institutions that, have this control over politicians that are currently, litigating and setting our budgets and legislating laws. I want to make sure that we start streamlining our budgetary process so that way it's direct impact towards the people in our neighborhoods. When it comes to the school system, we have $28,000 for every public school student, but for an average for private school, it's about 18,000. So that's 13,000 for elementary school, 25 for high school. Why is it that teachers are still having to pay out of pocket for students? There's a mismanagement happening. And I think that, that it's because of the power brokers that affect politics. I'd be in for, we had a lot of exodus in terms of people because of COVID. I think this is a time for us to start thinking about the quality of life for people who already live here in New York. And let's start considering maybe down zoning, and why do we need to keep on building and building and building? Maybe further upstate should worry about, building out more. And maybe we should figure out the quality of life for New Yorkers here.
Okay, thank you. And I see that Carlton has just joined us. Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
Hello. So I gave a little introduction about how this debate isn't going to be like other debates. We're going to have a little bit of fun and keep things a little lively and holistic, and it's rapid fire, hence the fire emojis on my background. So we just went through all the candidates. Everyone spoke about, how Bronx County is 62 out of 62. The quality of life is down. What will you do if you're elected to change that? Pick one issue. We heard a bunch of different issues. We heard about the environment. We heard about fresh foods. We heard about kids. So what would you do, Carlton, if you're elected? What would you focus on? That's the first question. You have 1 minute to answer.
Okay, well, we all have our own expertise. So the one thing I would focus on is, with me being a retired New York City detective, I would focus on the relations with the police and the community, especially and the minority communities, because as we can see with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, right, it took the George Floyd, really, it just didn't take the George Floyd incident, right, for people to be awakened. This has been going on for forever. We had our own George Floyd with Eric Garner, with Ramarley Graham, all right? So what I would focus on, one of the main important things I would focus on is the police relations with the minority communities. Now, we heard today, all right, with all of the reforms that are going on, now all of a sudden, I saw a lot of police officers of color standing up there with Pat Lynch, right, upset about the recent reforms that was coming. But you know what? These reforms, I joined the police department back in 1984. I called on these reforms back then, because if we would have had these reforms, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through now. All right. So it took so many people to lose their lives unarmed with having just a chance encounters with police. It took this to happen. Now, that decision with George Floyd and a lot of these decisions were made by the individual police officers and then the culture of the police department. I don't know how much time that I have, but that's the first thing I would focus on. That would be one, because if we can't focus on law and order, then we're going to have chaos. All right. So that's one of the first issues that I would focus on.
I gave you a little extra time because you didn't have time to give an introduction. So there you go. It was powerful and emotional. And that's what we like here at Schneps Media's Rapid Fire Debates. Look at everyone smiling. I'm going to take a screenshot because we look so good together. Okay. Now a question from our partner, the new Bronx Chamber of Commerce. This is a specific question. The City Council recently moved to lift the street vendor permit cap, which will create 4,000 new permits for street vendors in the city over the next decade, and will create a separately funded law enforcement unit to oversee the street vending community. So critics, including Bronx Councilmember Mark Jonai, who's on his way out, the chair of the council small business committee, said this would hurt the restaurant community, which has already been hurting during COVID, while supporters of the legislation like Councilmember Margaret Chin, who's also term limited, say the more the merrier on the streets. What are your thoughts? And we'll go in the same order we've been going. Carlton, you'll be last if that's okay with you. Okay. So we'll go in that same order. What are your thoughts on this legislation, and how do you think this new enforcement office should be funded? And we'll begin with Eric. Oops, you're muted.
I know, it's, no, I'm not. Yeah, there are parts of the bill that I am supportive of. I think creating the new enforcement unit is vital. We're talking a lot about police reform and the funding of police and what police do. This actually specifically addresses what police do and do not do. So I'm supportive of that. And I'm supportive of raising the cap to help address the fact that a lot of these permits are being sold on the black market, help uplift some of our, some of our neighbors and community members who utilize these food carts for businesses to make money and make a small business. I am concerned that the bill doesn't address things like the proximity to some of our other restaurants that already exist, some of our other businesses that already exist. And it's an overarching problem that I find with a lot of legislation is that, maybe this is a solution, however many street carts you want on a busy street in Midtown Manhattan. That's not the same solution for Katona Avenue or Johnson Avenue or Broadway in the Bronx. And so I think we have to be a little more deliberate about the proximity of these food carts to similar types of businesses and what that means for a neighborhood and what contributions the food cart vendors are giving to a neighborhood, right? We have business improvement.
Sorry, I hate cutting everyone off. I'm sorry.
Oh,
time,
All right, I forgot it's rapid fire, not rapid.
Yeah. Rapid fire. Wait till you get till the actual rapid fire round. I have hand motions that I'm going to have everyone do. We're all on the screen together. Okay. Right. Yes, back to this legislation. Thank you. Jessica, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit in the more the merrier camp. I think that the enforcement should be funded by the permit fees so that it's sort of a self-contained revenue and then enforcement cycle. I believe that getting people out into the streets, helps the communities, helps the neighborhood. If you walk to dinner, you can have dinner at the restaurant, ice cream at the the truck and then pick up stuff from the drugstore on the way home. I mean, this is how urban society works and thrives. And by the way, when more people are on the streets are safer. So I think that what we need to do is make sure that all of these regulations, when we're opening streets, and that we do it, that we give the streets back to the people, and that we also do it in tandem with studies and understanding how it affects accessibility and ADA, sort of ability to maneuver on these streets as we move from cars to restaurant stalls to vendors and all that. So again, we need to be intentional about what we're building.
Thank you. Mino, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I was a big supporter of that bill, that introduction, and I'm so happy that the cap on street vendors was lifted. I think we need to support working families. We need to support entrepreneurs and small businesses, and that includes street vendors and the flower shop and the empanada maker down the street. This is about uplifting our communities and our neighbors, and I absolutely support it. And I think when we speak of it'll hurt the brick and mortar, I think that's a scare tactic to make us be against one another. That is how oppression works, keeping people down and pitting us against one another. We are all here trying to build up for our families and our communities. I agree that having street vendors revitalizes communities, whether it's buying clothes, selling masks, or selling empanadas. This will just help the vibrancy of the neighborhood so that then you go indoors and sit down. It's a completely different experience. It's apples and oranges. So I absolutely support him. And I do also agree that NYPD should not be the one enforcing these permits. We need to make sure that it's another agency, another unit. So that's something that I support as well.
Thank you. Dan.
Okay, so, I'm okay with, I was supportive of lifting the ban to create new entrepreneurs and create this opportunity for new small business persons. I too have my own business, so I understand that. For me, I think citing is an important thing, and not just for conflict with businesses of selling the same products, but for traffic flow on the street. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful of, where some of the vendors are located, to make sure that they're not in the way and congesting the street to a point where folks can't get through. Those are issues we've dealt with on the CB for many years. Lastly, with enforcement, and I'm going to try to be quick. I think basically funding-wise was your question. It should come under the Department of Consumer Affairs, who generally handle the street vendor permits. The conflict, however, though, is not going to be for licensed individuals. The conflict has always been for unlicensed individuals. And I think we need to keep in mind that, there will be situations where somebody who does not have a license gets agitated, gets angry. And the question is it going to be one of this new unit from Consumer Affairs, or is it going to rise to a level where you do need a police officer? And that's going to be a continuing conversation that we have.
Okay. Kevin.
Well, I'm definitely all for capitalism and the free market. So I think that we could open up the permit process to these brick and mortar establishments as well. And there's no reason why they couldn't have, a little outpost from their, that works in tandem with their restaurant. So I think, we fund it through the permit process. I agree, in terms of taking things away from the police department, I think it's more about training and figuring out this and making sure that police have special, crisis negotiation training in terms of how to handle certain things and whatnot. But I agree, if it's someone who's going to be already breaking the law and who's unpermitted, what else is to say in terms of how they're going to react to a situation of being shut down and whatnot. So, I definitely think law enforcement should be handled by the police and law enforcement officers. I think we should obviously train them and maybe have a different unit within that, within the police department to deal with it. But I think the more the merrier for sure. And I'd love to see some of those food carts down by, Van Cortlandt Park and whatnot too.
Okay. And Carlton.
Okay. Well, first of all, I believe in the more the merrier. All right. But I also, and I definitely agree with that part of the law enforcement being taken away from police. I don't believe in defunding the police. All right. But I do believe in a reallocation of funds. Okay. Just like my sister Jessica said a little bit about when there's more people on the street, right? Less crime. Listen, being a retired detective, people get shot in the middle of the street. We just had that out in Brooklyn. All right. So I just don't want that false sense of security to be given, because I've interviewed some of the worst killers and shooters and rapists, and they do it whenever they can do it. All right. I mean, you always got to worry about yourself on the street. All right. As far as, like I said, I want the enforcement to be taken away from NYPD. It should be given to the health inspectors. All right. Because people need to be properly licensed because you're talking about food. All right. And we know that people will bend the rules wherever they can. And no one wants to get sick when you're talking about these food vendors. Also, we need to take proximity into effect. What's the matter? I'm going too fast.
No, that's it.
Oh, that's it? You cut me off?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right then. I just needed to know. How long do we have to answer? Like 20 seconds?
Just 1 minute.
Huh?
1 minuto.
Oh, well, I went through a minute that fast? Okay. All right. All right. Okay.
All right, everyone. This is a fun question. Now, I want each person on the screen. You're all active community members, as everyone's hearing. I want each person to name another person on the screen that you've worked with to achieve a goal in the community.
We going in order? Or?
You want to go in the same order? Do you guys like the order?
Can you mix it up? I think it's
fine. I'll mix it up. Let's start with, we'll go reverse.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm fine being number one. I'm fine if the voters find me number one as well. That's totally fine.
No, let's go in reverse. Carlton, pick someone on the screen that you've worked with together to achieve a goal, and you have 1 minute.
Unfortunately, I haven't worked with anyone on the panel here. I haven't. But I do look forward to working with each and every one right after this, regardless of whoever wins it, all right? Because we're all not moving from this area. So I'm looking at making friends, but I'm looking, the one who's really opened up to me, right? And who's also my number 2 and number 3 on my ranked choice voting is Dan Padernacht as number 2. And I got Jessica as number 3. And I got Mino as number 4. And I got Paz. I was waiting for like Paz and Eric to call, but no one ever called. So that's the order I went in. Yeah, that's the order I went in. But I haven't worked with anyone on the panel, but I'm looking forward to doing so.
Okay, thank you. And your turn.
Yeah, well, just the same as in Carlton. I haven't actually had any time to work with anybody on the panel so far. You know, sorry, Carlton. I would have reached out to you. I should have reached out to you, but I mean, you're certainly in my choices as a resident. You know, it's you and Dan. Otherwise, me, I'm not. You know, everybody else. You know, I think they're all great people, but in terms of policy, you know, I see things differently. I definitely have had a chance to talk to Dan. He gave me an idea in terms of, you know, him and Eric are big into the community boards, and that kind of helped me start developing part of my platform in terms of really trying to get representatives from every block and every electoral district to act as a, if elected, and, you know, even if I'm not elected, I think that's what I'm going to trying to organize, but to work as kind of, to give a little more beef and muscles to the community boards. I think they do really great work, but I think if we can organize the communities on every block, then we can actually, you know, really strengthen the community's voice together towards, you know, making sure that we have laws and we see how we have a city that we want.
Okay. Dan.
Yeah.
Have you worked with anyone here?
So first I'll say, you know, just to echo Carlton, I have not yet had a chance to work on any issues with, but I'm looking forward, you know, after this election, working on a lot of community issues going on. He is my second choice. And I'm telling folks, you know, to vote Carlton Berkley second, because he's just such a good guy. As far as like folks in the panel who I have worked with before, truth is, you know, I've worked with Eric on a number of issues within the community board. You know, Eric's been a member for, I think, 4 years now. You know, so we have worked on quite a few community issues together and a lot of things that have come in front of the board.
I can see some porcupines quills raising. Yeah. Mino, have you worked with anyone on this screen?
Not with anyone on this screen. I've worked with neighbors to, you know, take down the IDC, and I know some people here did that too, and some actively did not, but not on this stage. I also worked with other mothers to organize a march, and I did partner with Jessica to as part of a rally to save our small businesses. So that is something that we did. It was more recently, but we did do that together. Unfortunately, that business came out, but we brought the attention of the bills that need to be putting forward, and we partner with elected officials to do that.
Okay. Jessica?
Yeah, so Dan obviously doesn't remember our fun times on the early Greenway. I think
yes. Wow. Yes.
Paul Elston's house early. There's an amazing project, the Hudson River Greenway, we basically have access to the Hudson River in Manhattan, and then in Yonkers, and the Bronx is ignored. About 10, 12 years ago, yeah, Levy and Paul Elston. So that was, I first met Dan that many years ago. And I've invited Carlton, I think in the future, through our faith community. So we haven't done it yet. But our faith communities often come together. And I think he as a deacon should be part of that. I co-founded a synagogue with my husband and some other folks. And I think that, in terms of bringing communities together through that lens, that's something I'm looking forward to, regardless of the outcome of this election.
Okay. And Eric.
Yeah. Well, first, I look forward in the future to working with, everyone on the screen. But, as Dan mentioned, he and I both serve on the community board. I chair the aging committee. It's a committee on which he serves. And in running those meetings, or with the senior centers, or with any resolutions, he's had a lot of good input. And even before I was chair, he's provided me a lot of important information and help on the community board. And so I'm very glad that I've been able to work with him on that in the past.
Okay. And I want to reiterate to the audience, if you have any questions, type them into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and maybe we'll get some of your questions heard with the panel here. So I was surprised to hear that not all of you have all worked with each other, but I guess there you go. Okay, now for a mean question. And we'll go in that same reverse order. Pick a candidate and be critical. Tell us an area where you believe they lack knowledge or experience, or if they're shady, and each criticized candidate can then respond for a whole minute. And keep in mind, everyone, the audience is evaluating your character. Carlton.
Okay, well, like I said, my family asked me not to attack anybody, and I won't, but I would like to just ask Eric, all right? And Eric has been working with his father for a while, right? And like I said, whenever we had a crisis, the Romali Graham shooting, killing over here where the police burst into his house, I never seen his father. I never seen him when we have crises such as these. All right. And with him being a representative, the district manager or leader, I've never seen Eric over here. And like I said, in a crisis situation like that. And from the people I get over here, everybody is upset and say, all we get is cameo appearances. All right. Now, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad. Right now, there's a lot of things that his father has done. All right. But when it comes to issues such as that, right, I would like to know why I have never seen him over here with crisis like that.
Well, Carlton, thanks. I guess that was the question. I don't speak for my father. He doesn't speak for me. We're different people. And so you're welcome to certainly call his office and ask him, what his positions are on issues, where he is. I can only speak for myself. And if the question is, are you there for people? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Through my career, I've been there for my students. I've been there as U of T chapter leader for my fellow workers. I've been there as Democratic district leader to make sure that people have the ability to vote. When the pandemic started, I just started calling seniors. I called seniors and over. I called thousands of seniors. And I was there for them. Some of them just wanted someone to talk to, right? But others of them needed meal deliveries. And I've set up meal deliveries for people, including people in Wakefield. Others needed someone to talk to, including people in Wakefield. And I'm in Wakefield every single week talking to voters. And it's not just in crises that people want to know someone's there for them. They want to know someone's there for them to make sure people aren't speeding down the streets, to make sure that the schools reopen safely, that the small businesses are supported. And that is also the work that I'm going to do, the work that's on my platform, and the help that I'm going to provide for the people in the Northwest Bronx.
But Ms. Sky, my question to him was, when people have gotten shot and killed over here, when people, when the crime is so high in Wakefield, when we hear about those type of incidents, I never see, not just Eric, right? I never seen his father or anything. Now, that's the crisis I'm talking about. All right. With the crime over here, that's the crisis I'm talking about.
Eric, you can respond more if you'd like, just for 30 seconds.
Sure. 718-796-5655. 5345 is the number for my father's office. He is one person. He is representing us in one place. I am running to represent the entire district in the city council. And the promise I made to you today is the same promise I made to you last time, and the promise I've made to hundreds and hundreds of students, families, older adults, people with disabilities, is I have been there and I will be there to make sure that they have a fierce advocate in City Hall for our community.
But you was the district leader for us, and I'm saying,
Carlton, we're not going to have a big fight here. This is
no. I don't want to. Okay,
to discuss things in an open environment. So thank you, and thank you, Eric. Kevin, it's your turn to be critical.
All right. Well, actually, it's kind of been a little bit of an ongoing thing. You know, so I've kind of feel like, you know, I definitely believe in science, and I think it's important for us to be good stewards of our you know, of our environment, of where we live and whatnot. And so, you know, I've kind of been going a little bit against, going towards Jessica, because you know, I know that she's really for resilient cities and smart cities. And so I'm just trying to reconcile, I guess, partially the fact that, you know, she's funded by venture capital firms. She's profited enough to live in a very, you know, the Beverly Hills of New York, and then pushes, micro apartments and, you know, getting rid of cars when she has vehicles herself. So the question is really more towards, you know, in terms of what she mentioned earlier, you know, rerouting the infrastructure of a highway will immediately stop it, but it's not going to be it's not an immediately fixed. You know, how are you going to stop, you know, all the stuff that needs to come into the city? You know, like we have trucks that drop all these goods and merchants. You know, to be able to fix that overnight is not possible. So it's going to take a long time to redo the infrastructure. So how do you see doing that so that we can immediately fix the problem?
So I read a couple of things into that question. One was sort of like personal tax, and the other was sort of like a policy infrastructure question. So for the first part, I'm not funded by venture firms. I have a long career. There are people in different aspects of my past who are very excited about my leadership and what I can bring. Some of them have worked in financial services. Some of them are teachers. Some of them are doctors. Some of them are unemployed or retired, and they're all coming behind me. I do believe in science and resilient cities. Kevin, I walked out of a career. In 2006, I walked out of a corporate career to dedicate the rest of my career to public policy. I had earned enough money to pay for my degree at Columbia, and I have spent every moment since focusing on that, whether it's on a board level, after work, you know, volunteering, doing that. Yes, it is rerouting infrastructure. It is about investing in our infrastructure for now and building intentionally forward for the long term. You can't plow over a highway overnight. It's not about plowing over, but if you've seen downtown Boston, what magic can come from, you know, putting the highway underneath, creating park space, creating stuff for children. You need a vision, and then to work towards the vision to get there. And that I want to be led by science to do that.
It's just not the immediate results that you said earlier. Okay, that's a fine answer.
Okay, that was the second little tidbit here. It's getting a little juicy. Is everyone liking this?
Can I respond to the immediate results? I mean, the immediate results are, if you take the trucks away, I've said this before, the kids will feel better from asthma tomorrow. So taking trucks off the road will help us with carbon emissions and all those long-term global things, but it will also help kids and adults and people who have respiratory issues right away.
Then we shut down the city because
the market is moving there. GM is not going to produce by 2035, is not going to produce combustion engine vehicles anymore. We're moving.
There's still going to be some. Yeah, no, I'm for re-improve technology and the types of trucks we have, but you're saying getting rid of trucks completely. If we have trucks that, you know, don't pollute as much either, then there's no need to really.
Yeah, I didn't say get rid of trucks completely. I said pull the combustion engine.
Infrastructure for it, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both. Now for the next fight. I'm kidding. The next point
discussion? The next discussion?
Yes, the next discussion. Dan, your turn.
Okay, I can ask everybody something. Okay, Mino, I have a question. over the summer, you know, there were some passionate tweets by you. Some of them involved calling to abolish the NYPD. Others, you know, were, I guess, very passionate and did include some name calling. I know from my experience on the community board that the council member is going to have to work with the NYPD each day. And I know, and I've said, you know, I've mirrored many things that Carlton have said, that we need complete reform within the culture of the NYPD. I've also said we need to bridge the gap between community and NYPD. I know that you're pretty open in saying that you want to defund the NYPD. So given these feelings, if you were the council member, you know, why would the COs, the commanding officers of our 3 precincts, want to establish that working relationship with you? I mean, would it be an impediment?
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I think last summer, anyone who watched the execution of George Floyd, as Carlton has said, and wasn't, you know, I think all of us were angry and shared in that grief and that sorrow. But fear, I mean, I hear what you're saying of putting in fear of like people shouldn't vote or I wouldn't be able to work. Look at the work that I've done. I've been able to engage with all stakeholders in my organization, through my organization, excuse me, when even if it's government, you know, whether it's government, for-profit, community-based, residents of all ages, multi-generational, to work towards the community. I believe that the police are an essential piece of our society. And I agree with you that we will have to be working together, and I absolutely will. So one of the things that we'll do that I share as a goal with the NYPD, with the precincts that are here, is we want to keep our community safe. And that's how we start the conversation. We all want to do that. And I have ideas together with a movement across the city, and there's a package of legislation right now that needs to be looked at and approved. And that's what that's what I would be supportive of. And of course, looking at every single one, but about accountability, about making sure that the NYPD, and the cops have been saying this too, right? They are tasked with too much. I have family members, I have neighbors who have been saying it, who are in the police force, tasked with too much. So it's about making sure that they can focus on preventing and solving violent crime so that all of us are safe. And that's how we start the conversation. We start with, how do we improve our communities?
So look, I think that's always the goal. It's always what people are talking about, but it's much more than that. And we're talking about daily issues that you're constantly working on with the police department. And I guess what my question really gets the root to is, you know, if the police feel that you have, I guess, antagonism to them, are you going to be able to overcome that?
Yes.
Because I mean, if somebody came out and said, I want to see half, you know, I want to see you fired, I want to see, you know, a lot of your force goes, you know, it would be, you know, you're starting from a very difficult place. And I guess that's what it was really getting to. You know,
yeah. I mean, I think we find, you know, look, we will have differences. And absolutely, and I think, you know, here a lot of us are very, you know, share a lot of values, and we will, you know, I will have differences, you know, with the commissioner. I will have different points of views, but we also are New Yorkers, and we share the same desire and the same push for wanting to make our community better. So that's how we start. We start with the places of commonalities, and we grow from there, and we have conversations about the why. And I will be a strong advocate for accountability, and making sure that if there is an issue, as Carlton was saying, I'm going to be there showing up and I have been doing that activist work. So I'm not afraid to speak up against the NYPD, but I'm also brave to work with them, because that is the job, and I will do that work.
Okay, thank you. Mino, it's your turn to be critical of someone if you'd like to be.
Yeah. So I'd like to follow up on a question that I know has been asked before, Eric, of you. But I felt has not been answered, right? So when it comes to the IDC, you've said you supported Jeff Klein in one of the million debates we've done, right? You said you supported Jeff Klein, but yet you do not support the IDC. One and the other are not together, right? You can't support Jeff Klein actively, petition for them, volunteer for them, and say you don't support the IDC. As a candidate and as someone who identifies as a progressive, that goes against the values, right? The IDC was responsible for years of blocking progressive legislation that supported women, that would have supported tenants, that would have supported communities of color. So by supporting the IDC, you blocked that. But yet your answer is what you've done somewhere else. I'm not interested in what you did somewhere else. How can you justify supporting the IDC by supporting Jeff Klein right here, and you haven't apologized for it? If we can't trust you there, how can our residents trust you moving forward?
So let's again be clear. I supported I voted for Jeff Klein after Andrew Stewart Cousins reunified the Democratic Party. And my passion and my work that year involved organizing phone banks. And I am unique in that, and that I am the candidate, the only candidate to have organized phone banks and actively campaign for Democratic candidates throughout the state that flipped Republican seats, red seats, to blue, including Anna Kaplan and James Skoufis. And that is work that I've continued to do. And that's work that I had done prior, including for Hillary Clinton, John Ossoff, Joe Biden, Todd Kaminsky, Shelley Mayer. That is all work that I've done. I am very proud of that work. And again, I am unique in that I'm the only candidate to have done that organization in order to get those Democratic victories.
Many of us participated in phone bank and organized things in Georgia and across. I mean, I think it's unfair to say that. And again, I'm talking about right here in our home, where both of us are raising our children. We are talking about the impact right here. He was our representative. And it was, you supported him rather than the progressive candidate endorsed by the Working Families Party, our Senator Biaggi. So yes, about the other things, one thing does not negate the other. It's not zero sum. Right. So why right here in our home you didn't do it?
And now, Corey Johnson, Speaker Corey Johnson, one of her biggest supporters, is endorsing me. 32BJ, the union, one of her biggest supporters, is now endorsing me. And you're going back to 3 years ago, to an election 3 years ago. I'm looking forward, and my priority is bringing people vaccines, getting our small businesses back on track, reopening schools safely, supporting our seniors and people with disabilities. That's what we need to do looking forward. And I believe the voters are also looking forward. And they're looking for someone who's going to be their best advocate. And I believe that that has been me, not just during this pandemic. Before the pandemic, my years in the classroom as district leader, as a union activist, advocate for seniors and people with disabilities. And that's what I believe people are looking for.
But if you don't admit that you were wrong then, how can we trust you're not going to do it again? Because in that moment, you're saying you were, are you saying you were wrong in not supporting?
Like this.
Scott, you had some nice gestures there.
This is the cane. I'm pulling you with the cane.
Sorry.
Started it.
Open it up and I'll go after him.
Okay, now Jessica.
Yeah, so I've managed a P&L. I've been a CEO, a COO. I have a degree from Wharton. I know, Kevin, it's like this whole market-based thing. Mino has been an executive director and grown a business and managed the whole thing. One of the most important things that we're going to need to do hitting this, picking up in this special election is to hit the budget cycle. And one of the most powerful roles for a city council member is to deal with the budget. Eric, as we all know, you're a school teacher. You've been a special ed teacher, which is a very noble position. And we've had a lot of wonderful electeds across the country who have come from that position. But please, can you tell us how we know that you're going to be able to handle the budget priorities and the responsibilities and the numbers and dealing with translating values into budgets and hit the ground running and be able to do that right away?
Because I know what those dollars mean. I know what those dollars mean to our children. I know what it means when school budgets are cut, how that impacts a child in the classroom. I know what it means when you cut the budget for food. It means children, it means that children aren't getting the food that they need. They're not getting the resources that they need. It means if we're cutting the budget, I see the impact that it has on our seniors. That's the work that I've done already. I see during the pandemic, when I'm out in the street with organizations passing out meals to people, passing out groceries to people, I know the impact of the dollars. And that's how you know I'm gonna go to City Hall and fight for those dollars for the people who need them the most.
Right, but we all understand the value of the dollar, but funding for one takes it is a pie unless you know how to generate revenue and grow the pie. So I'm just wondering what experience you have with creating a budget, growing something, funding it with a finite number of resources.
Right. So your question is, am I smart enough to handle the budget? That's
Well,
That's not a very nice thing to ask. I'm just going to say it's not a very nice thing to ask, Jessica.
No, I want to know what experience you can point to.
Because
I want to know what experience you can point to. I know Dan has run a small, I mean, I look at experience that everybody has that they can point to that they've done it. I don't know. I'm just asking if you, because you point to one particular experience again and again, what experience can you point to that we can understand that you can do it?
Yeah. I mean, so if you've ever been in a public school classroom, you may know what it's like to have to teach a group of children with disabilities with almost no resources, right? And that is one of the hardest things that I have ever done, is I've had to figure out how to make materials for my students and not even spend out of my own pocket, by the way, for them, give them what they need with no real budget. And I've had to manage that. And any teacher out there will tell you the same thing, that we are getting less and less for the children who need more and more. And any teacher will tell you that they know how to manage that very well.
Okay. And now, Eric, your turn to be critical of someone else.
So throughout this campaign, I've been very clear. I don't want to be critical of everyone. Everyone can speak for themselves. I do have a question. It's a question for Kevin. As you probably know, I'm the Democratic district leader, and in part of that work, I have sought to make voting easy and accessible, and of course, especially during COVID, safe. And part of the way I've done that is by advocating for reforms over and over again to our mail-in balloting process, right? Expanding it to everyone, even advocating for sending applications to everyone. There are a number of other reforms that I fought for, but what I want to ask you is, you proudly, supported Donald Trump, who we all know in the last election cast doubt on the validity of mail-in ballots. And I'm wondering what your position is on mail-in voting. Should voters, what your position is on mail-in voting?
Well, no, I'm fine with mail-in voting as long as there's like some form of like fail-safe to check that they actually match the person. Like normally with absentee ballots, there's like a signature process and there's like a whole verification process that that absentee ballot was from somebody, whether in the military, whatever it is. So I'm all for this new, for this new system that's coming in because of what's happened with COVID. I just want to make sure that there's a level of accountability, that we're not just having a bunch of ballots that are coming in that can easily be frauded. So, I agree that this new system, there's merit to it, but I just want to make sure that we're not throwing away either whether it's signature verification or, some form of, matching the ballot to the person and we know that it's a legitimate person voting.
Do you think there are enough fail-safes and protections in New York for people to trust that their mail-in ballot is going to where it needs to go and is going to be counted?
Well, as long as we keep as long as if it's framed the same way as traditional absentee ballots, which I believe there's been a couple of regulations that have been skirted in that. As long as it matches the traditional absentee ballot process, where there is a verification process, then I'm fine with it. And I don't trust. I have issues trusting anybody who's like a career politician, and especially I know that's your party went up, but the party that's been in control of New York, I think they've highly mismanaged New York. So I want to make sure that we have built-in regulations. And like I said, and what's worked in the past in terms of absentee ballots, that's fine. But it's just when we start getting rid of signature verification and that kind of stuff, that's where I feel then you start getting a little loose and wild.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes left, and there are some questions that have come in from the audience. One question in particular is addressed to Mr. Dinowitz and Padernacht, who have served on the community boards. Do they feel more can be done about uniform land use, letting the boards know in a timely manner what is being proposed in their district?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, what order do we go in?
No, we'll make it a little bit of conversation. Then we have our rapid fire round. So just maybe 30 seconds on that.
Yeah, when it comes to ULURP, we only get 60 days, and some of these ULURPs that we get are 1,000 pages long. For instance, when ZQA and MIH came in front of us, those were very significant documents, and we had to read it, go through it, have enough time to have a public hearing, a meeting for the committee to discuss, and then the full board to get it. Definitely need more time for the ULURPs. In addition, I'd like to see the boards getting more information about projects in general, so that way we can review it, discuss it. I've also been a huge advocate of making the variance process at DSA much easier, where the community board and developer are agreeing on changes. Because many times it could be very beneficial to the community, but developers don't do it because of the time delay and cost in doing so. But to answer your question, definitely yes, more time to the community boards.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, in fact, I guess it was over a year ago, there was a proposed change to the city charter, which provided more time for community boards to review the ULURP applications. And I went around to different community boards in the district and advocated for people to vote for it, because information does help empower local community boards. I think that's important. You know, a lot of the issues that Dan and I see on the community board don't just involve the ULURP process. They involve as of right buildings. And so I think that is also an important component, having that information out there for the community boards and neighbors and community members in allowing us more local control and empowering community members to really have a voice in new developments that come up.
Okay. Now, there are a few questions, and I'm going to read some of the questions, and then we'll go around, and each person has 30 seconds, and you can address whichever part of the question you want. And then we'll do the rapid fire round with the hand motions. So the first question's here. What does defunding the NYPD mean to you? You can talk about that. If you're in favor of it, against it, what does it mean to you? And what is your plan to address the digital divide? And then again, if you want to reiterate, who are you ranking second on your ballot? I know some people mentioned it. So out of those three questions, we'll go around in the initial order, beginning with Eric and Carlton, but just for 30 seconds, it could be about defunding NYPD, addressing the digital divide, or who you're ranking second. You could address any or all of those things in 30 seconds, go.
Yeah, the original defund the police movement sought to cut the police budget, but it didn't fundamentally address the roles of policing, and it didn't address accountability. And so, you know, I'm proud to be endorsed by Senator Jamal Bailey, who was the force in the Senate behind repealing 50A, which shielded police misconduct records. In the city, we do need to give the CCRB authority to act and take away a majority appointment from the mayor and the commissioner. And of course, really talk about the responsibilities of the police department, which we alluded to further. But I am not in favor of defunding the police because it doesn't address those issues.
Time. Thank you. Jessica.
I'm proud to endorse and encourage everyone to rank Mino Lora second on their ballots. $900 million in overtime for the NYPD. We clearly have culture issues in our NYPD, and we have our communities who want to feel safe. We need to pull away responsibility. We need to tighten that overtime budget because it feels like mismanagement to me, and focus so that they can do their job better and be more accountable. I wrote about the digital divide about a year ago, right, as this pandemic was hitting. I think the government needs to provide Wi-Fi access, broadband, and pull families together so that everybody knows how to use the technology, and we need to do that training.
Thank you. Mino.
Sorry. Yes, when it comes to ranked choice, I am ranking proudly Jessica as number 2, Carlton as my number 3, and still looking for the rest, figuring it out. When it comes to defund, what it means to me, it is reallocating. It is making sure that our communities are safer, so they're streamlining the job responsibilities. It's about also making sure that we're not just relying on the NYPD. We need to hire more healthcare workers and social workers, Department of Transportation. So it is about reallocating and accountability. And the final one, the divide, we need to invest in universal broadband. We need to prioritize our communities who have that divide, who are impacted.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, so number 2, Carlton Berkley, as I said before, defunding, no matter how you do it, or you want to call it reallocating, anything else, defunding means that you're going to lose personnel. 88% of the NYPD budget is personnel. 1/3 of those personnel are civilian employees, 2/3 are patrol. If you defund, reallocate, whatever you want to call it, you're losing police in the city of New York. Digital divide, get free Wi-Fi to the neediest of New Yorkers, make sure that our children in schools have their own laptop to work from home, and work on the digital divide. I believe that everybody should have Wi-Fi, and I'll work with cable providers to do so.
Okay, Kevin.
The defunding the police to me is taking money away or reallocating funds. I disagree with that. You know, I think that the main issues that we have with the police department is that, they bear witness to a lot of the tragedies of society. So I think they actually need a lot more money for mental health issues, because a lot of times they're either taking their own lives, you know, taking it out on their families or the public. The digital divide, I think that we definitely should be providing free Wi-Fi for any, you know, night shift, you know, homes, or any, and for like maybe some kind of form of a voucher program for those who don't have enough money to cover it, and continue giving laptops to the kids. And
time.
Yep.
Carlton, your turn.
Defunded, again, I said defunding the police, no. Reallocation, that means that, because technically the definition for defund is to take away. All right, that's how I look at it. And we have to be careful when we say that, because we make a lot of people afraid. All right, now, as far as reallocating, right, we take from different units, right? Units that's no longer, that the police department no longer needs, then we take that money and we put it somewhere else. Like Dan said, if you take it away, right, then the civilian personnel of the police department is going to suffer, because those are going to be the first ones to go. As far as the digital divide, everyone should have free access, everyone.
All right, everyone, look, it's 4:01. We're a little over time. I wanted
to say Carlton third. I feel terrible. I didn't mean to forget to say that. I just wanted to say that.
That's okay. Now, everyone, we're going to do the hand motion round. I know it's 4:01, so we're going to wrap. I wanted to give everyone, would you rather do the hand motion rapid fire round, or would everyone rather give 30 seconds of a concluding statement? Let's vote. Rapid fire?
Or we know our concluding, I could do their concluding statements.
Concluding statement.
Oh, that would be a fun.
You guys aren't voting. Who wants rapid fire? And who
rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Let's do it.
Let's make it fun.
Rapid fire. Ready? Should Cuomo resign, or should there be due process?
Due process.
Due process.
Do the hand motion. That's
a false equivalency. That's a false question.
I'm the moderator here, Jessica. So which is it? Tell the audience.
Due process.
Due process.
Both. He should
do both.
Okay,
yeah.
both.
You can do both.
Okay.
Are we doing both?
Raise your hand if have you been vaccinated? No
have you had COVID?
No one's been back. Yes. Have you had COVID?
COVID.
Okay, raise your hand. If you lose this special election next week, will you still run in June? Okay. That was an experimental rapid fire round. Did you like it?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
All right. So we know your concluding statements. Everyone's welcome to go to your website. This was fun. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this. Schneps Media's rapid fire debates on PoliticsNY. Subscribe to us on our newsletter at politicsny.com. I'm PoliticsNY with Sky. We have an upcoming 20-minute podcast with ranked choice voting. It's going to be like a ranked choice voting for dummies style interview. I'm going to be doing that with Michael Ryan, the executive director for the Board of Elections in New York City. Thank you to our partners, the new Bronx Chamber of Commerce and BronxNet TV. Thank you for watching. On behalf of Schneps Media, I am Sky with PoliticsNY. Thank you, panelists.
Thanks.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sky.
Take care. Thanks again.
Take care, everyone.
All right.